As I'm sure you've heard by now, Bill Ackman SPAC, Pershing Square Tontine Holdings, ticker PSTH, will be acquiring 10% of Universal Music Group. Just like the SPAC itself, this deal is complicated and has a very unique structure that has never been seen before. I've talked about the unique aspects of PSTH previously on my channel, so be sure to check those videos out if you're interested. In this video, I'm going to walk through what will happen to our PSTH shares if we decide to hold all the way through the Universal Music Group transaction, and also talk about a few different scenarios that can happen. I'm also going to talk about the 2/9 Tontine warrant and warrant exchange program. I'm going to break this transaction down into multiple parts with time links to each part in the video description. All this right after. I am not a financial advisor. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Learn to invest like a wolf at your own risk. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, Wolves of Investing. My name is Donnie Nguyen and I'm the founder of Wolves of Investing. If you're new, my channel is primarily about investing in the stock market. If you want to learn how to achieve financial freedom through investing, be sure to click on the subscribe button and notification bell if you haven't yet. And please remember to drop a like on this video if you enjoy it, as it truly helps out the channel. And be sure to check out my Patreon and Discord links in the video description. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So PSTH will acquire 10% of the shares of Universal Music Group from Vivendi for approximately $4 billion, which represents 72% of PSTH's total capital. This values Universal Music Group at approximately $39.5 billion. Because only 72% of PSTH's capital will be deployed, there's expected to be around $1.6 billion left over. That leftover money will be used in the remaining PSTH entity, which we're calling RemainCo. Later this year, after Vivendi completes its previously announced listing of Universal Music Group on Euronext Amsterdam, PSTH plans to distribute the acquired Universal Music Group shares to its shareholders. According to the presentations, I'm expecting this distribution to happen sometime in November. A big question that American shareholders have been asking is whether or not Universal Music Group will list on an American exchange, such as the New York Stock Exchange. Bill Ackman said that this decision will be up to the Universal Music Group's new board of directors. Now, in my opinion, the new board will decide to list on an American exchange to make it easy for American investors to receive our shares. It doesn't make any sense for them not to go this route. But there's always a chance that they don't. So in that case, we will have to discuss with our broker how they will handle the international shares. So how many shares of Universal Music Group should we expect to get in the distribution? Let's assume that we have 100 shares of PSTH. According to this slide, we would expect to get around 64 shares of Universal Music Group. But this would depend on the final share count of PSTH after the warrant exchange offer and Universal Music Group's fully distributed share count. So it could be more or less than 64 shares, depending on those variables. What about PSTH RemainCo? So PSTH RemainCo is expected to just have the same PSTH ticker. It's also expected to have approximately $5.42 per PSTH share in cash. And they're also expecting to do a 1-to-4 reverse stock split on RemainCo. So if we held our 100 shares to get RemainCo, we would end up with 25 shares of RemainCo after the reverse stock split. One thing to note is that this new PSTH will not technically be a SPAC. As stated in one of the press releases, PSTH RemainCo intends to remain listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Because the transaction will satisfy the requirements of an initial business combination, PSTH RemainCo will no longer be treated as a SPAC under New York Stock Exchange listing rules. That means that we won't have redemption rights to the cash in the trust. I personally don't see that as a big deal if Bill Ackman and his team pick another super solid company like Universal Music Group at a reasonable valuation. What happens to our 2/9 Tontine warrants? We would receive our 2/9 Tontine warrants after the redemption tender offer and after the warrant exchange offer. Assuming we held 100 shares of PSTH, we would receive 22 Tontine warrants, which would be applicable to RemainCo and would not be eligible for the warrant exchange offer. According to Bill Ackman, any fractional Tontine warrants would be paid out in cash. Now, it's my understanding, and I could be wrong here, but to me, it appears that the 2/9 Tontine warrants we receive will have less value than the current PSTH warrants because they will be applied to the much smaller RemainCo. Now, you might be wondering, if the Tontine warrants have less value than the current warrants, aren't we getting a bad deal? Well, that's a perfect segue to talk about the SPARC warrants, which I believe more than makes up for the lower value of the Tontine warrants. As far as I know, a SPARC is a brand new invention from Bill Ackman. A SPARC stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Rights Company. I'm not going to go into details about the SPARC, but basically, it's expected to have several $billion in cash to find another business combination. And PSTH shareholders will receive 10-year SPARC warrants to purchase the SPARC for $20 per share. And these warrants can only be exercised after SPARC enters into a definitive agreement for its initial business combination. So unlike a SPAC where we put up our money before knowing what the target is, SPARC lets us opt in after we know what the target is. And on top of that, if we decide to exercise our SPARC warrants, we will receive additional SPARC warrants for the next SPARC that Pershing Square decides to do. And we can continue to do this for SPARC 2, SPARC 3, SPARC 4, and so on and so forth. So if we have 100 shares of PSTH, we would receive 100 SPARC warrants. How much will the SPARC warrants be worth? There's no telling what the market is going to price them at. If I had to guess, I'd expect to see them start somewhere around $4 per SPARC warrant. But I'd expect it to fluctuate wildly over its lifespan based on what people think of Bill Ackman at that time and what rumors come out about a potential business combination. So now that we've talked about what happens to our PSTH stock if we don't redeem, let's talk about the warrant exchange offer. If we had warrants, we could exchange them for more shares of PSTH stock in the warrant exchange offer. The warrant exchange offer allows us to do a cashless conversion of the warrants to shares. We would use a table in the PSTH prospectus on page 166 to calculate how many shares of PSTH we would get. Let's assume that the volume-weighted average price of PSTH Class A common stock during the 10 trading days prior to the launch of the offer is $26. According to this table, we would get 0.2952 shares of PSTH for each warrant. So if we were to exchange 100 warrants, we would get 29 shares of PSTH. And it's my understanding that the fractional share will be paid out in cash. These newly exchanged shares of PSTH would not be eligible for the 2/9 Tontine warrants. A second choice we have is to just hold our warrants. So instead of exchanging them for PSTH, they would become warrants of the new PSTH RemainCo. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that the warrants in RemainCo will have less value than the current warrants. So in my opinion, if I'm right, it would make more sense to exchange the warrants in the warrant exchange offer than to hold on to them for RemainCo. So in summary, if we just held 100 shares of PSTH all the way through the transaction, our 100 shares would get us approximately 64 shares of Universal Music Group, 100 shares of the new PSTH RemainCo with approximately $5.42 of cash per share, which after the 1-to-4 reverse stock split will be 25 shares with approximately $22 of cash per share. Our 22 Tontine warrants on the PSTH RemainCo, and 100 Spark warrants. So in my opinion, this is a pretty cool deal, and I do plan on holding some of my PSTH shares all the way through the transaction. Assuming we continue to be in a healthy market, I suspect that Universal Music Group will trade up to a market cap of $50 billion sometime in the next 12 months. Universal Music Group is one of those companies that every large cap fund manager must own. So I do believe that there will be a huge demand for its shares. I really like this deal, and I may even buy more shares of Universal Music Group if it lists on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. All right, so let me know what you think about PSTH and what other SPACs you're watching. Drop me a line in the comments. Be sure to leave a like on this video before leaving. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.